Well, wake up, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Monday. We've got a lot of news to get to. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And we have a lot of news to get to over the past few hours. We're looking at Justin Trudeau possibly resigning the prime ministership in Canada after Chrystia Freeland has now collapsed and resigned there. So we're going to look at Canada. We're also going to look at this massive UFO flap and President Trump speaking out on this just a short time ago, demanding answers. The Pentagon saying these are not U.S. military drones. I know you keep saying that they're they're not U.S. military. So what in the heck are these things? There's sort of a dangerous psyop perhaps involved in this. Could it be a massive false flag that we will talk about?
Plus more fallout of the legacy media. I'll admit I'm enjoying this. Yeah, I am. CNN having to admit that they may have faked a report about rescuing a prisoner in Syria. ABC having to pay a massive settlement to Donald Trump for defamation. Maybe they should be looking in the mirror and seeing, what are we doing wrong here? Maybe this is not journalism. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. We're going to tell you about that. Plus, we're going to speak to former FBI whistleblower Stephen Friend about the January 6th report that has admitted that there were informants in the crowd. He's going to explain this document to us because it's vexing, to say the least.
Vexing is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the use of the language here, like informant rather than undercover agent or agent. So they're informants. So they're like contract employees, basically. They're not actually like on the government payroll. They don't get like benefits in the way that they normally would.
Right. The main question is, was this entrapment? Was it? And it seems like it absolutely was. Now, Representative Thomas Massey has said this just seems like a total no-brainer now that all January 6 defendants should be pardoned, because we've seen now the FBI repeatedly lying about it. So we're going to ask Steve Friend about it. I'm excited to speak to him.
Talk about a day. We've got Germany's government collapsing.
Yep.
So Olaf Scholz just did not survive a no confidence vote there, a confidence vote there. So what does that mean for the future of Germany? I mean, Europe is collapsing in real time, and we're watching Canada now collapse, their government collapsing in real time. RFK Jr. on Capitol Hill today. A number of the cabinet's choices from President Trump are now making their way to Capitol Hill to sort of be grilled by senators over the next few days. And also, we've got a freaking continuing resolution vote on the government. Will the government stay open and open for business here? Members of Congress have to figure out how they're going to pay for all of this stuff before the end of the week. So heading into Christmas, it's absolutely
also Democrats
time.
Putting forth a bill now saying they want to abolish the Electoral College. Okay. How are you going to pass it? That's nice. How are you going to pass that through right now in the last few weeks of any kind of power that Democrats have? Go ahead and try. Right. We have a lot of that to get to. Before we do that, we want to remind you that Redacted is brought to you by The Wellness Company. They're a longtime sponsor of independent media, and The Wellness Company is a great way to make sure that you are set up in your house for any kind of medications that may be blocked by whatever powers that are. You know what I'm talking about. And of course, with the holidays here, it means sick season, sinus infections, strep throat, ear infections, you name it. But you don't have to deal with it all alone this year, because this little blue case is your mobile urgent care. It has ivermectin, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, plus guides to using them safely so that you don't have to go through the hurdles of getting any medication that your family may need, maybe when hospitals or clinics are closed over the holiday. You just cut through the red tape by allowing you to take control of your health. You don't need a gatekeeper, because their medical board created a guidebook that helps with, the common things. You call the doctor, you've got strep throat, you've got an ear infection. So if that happens to you, you can be prepared. You can use the code Redacted and go to twc.health/redacted and get $30 off plus free shipping. Again, use the code Redacted. Head on over to TWC for the Wellness Center, the Wellness Company, twc.health/redacted. Man, I messed that up. twc.health/redacted.
Wow. Nailed it.
Wow.
Stuck the landing.
Okay, right. I just want to let you know that I take that in stride. When I said that to you last week, you gave me the dirtiest look. I hope our audience saw it, that he doesn't. You can dish it out, but you can't take it.
Yeah, no. In fact, I was doing some video work today, and I couldn't spit a word out. I was like a disaster. So I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I got to slap myself in the face.
The holidays coming, guys. We got a little senioritis for 2024, but we got to finish it.
We've been doing a lot of really deep dive interviews here on the show. So some some really compelling interviews, and so we've got a lot of content for you lined up here over the next few days. And but anyway, it's been a lot of work, and we're happy to do it because we love you guys, and we love being here and doing the show. But I couldn't spit out a word. I was like, oh my God, wake up, man! Get some coffee in your face. All right, I'm awake now, though.
You've been warned, planet Earth.
Let's do this, shall we? Because over a year ago, we warned you here on this show of a massive false flag operation that was coming. They would use a large-scale UFO invasion, some sort of weird distraction, UFOs, something, in order to carry this out. Multiple sources on our show, live guests on our show, warning us about that this was coming. In fact, we spoke to sources in September that told us this would start in the days following the election. Yeah, I talked about this in September with some sources who said, these sources, by the way, who were read into the program, they were right. This started happening right after the election. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was sitting there saying, here we go. Now we're starting to see all these drone sightings. Yep, they were correct about this. And last year, we spoke to a former FBI agent who was in charge of what was really known as the FBI's X-Files. They warned us that a fake alien invasion would be taking place. They warned us that a cover-up was for something larger. So you can actually go and seek that interview out. We have it right here on the channel. It's about a year old at this point. So we've been hearing about this operation for almost a year now, and now that moment is here. So what exactly are all these UFOs, all of these drones doing in the sky? It appears to be coming to a head before President Trump takes office. So he was just asked about this 2 hours ago, and he said our government knows exactly where these are coming from.
First of all, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and the ports? And it seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth? They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Yeah,
maybe I won't go there.
Over the president's house.
Yeah.
Okay. And we don't know. And the Pentagon is today, this afternoon, denying that they're military, saying, no, we're doubling down. We don't know what these are. These are not U.S. military. Absolutely lying to us. Absolutely lying to us. So what would cause widespread panic and force us into like a new round of lockdowns? Well, force NORAD, to take over operational control of the United States following the continuity of government, of course, instead of, force us into martial law. Of course, the head of NORAD would become the de facto president of the United States. Well, what could do that? Perhaps a missing nuclear or biological weapon that was let loose in the United States. That seems to be what's going on here today. Everyone, including local, state, and federal authorities, is desperately searching for answers as to what all of these drones are right now. There's been a notable lack of disclosure about any of it regarding what's actually happening in the skies above New Jersey, one of the most restricted airspaces in the world, by the way. In the world. Drone experts are now coming out saying there's no reason for drones to be flying at night. They're not meant to fly at night. They can't see at night. The only reason they would need to fly at night is because if they were equipped with some sort of radioactive material detectors. And they're looking for something. They're looking for perhaps a dirty bomb or radioactive material, missing nuclear warhead. Well, that's what they'll tell us anyway, right? They'll tell us something like that in order to distract us from what's really going on. So we now know, according to information that was just posted, that on December 2nd, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission disclosed that a medical device containing radioactive material was lost in transit in New Jersey. What? Essentially a dirty bomb or a small dirty bomb is missing? Okay. The event notification report, as published here in Zero Hedge with the manifest, shows that this thing has been lost in transit. The shipping container arrived at its destination damaged and empty. Oh, we've lost some radioactive material. The licensee has filed a claim with the shipper. If the source is not located within 30 days, the licensee will follow up with a full written report as to include the root causes and corrective actions. The email from the Cancer Center located in Newfield continued. Now, Zero Hedge writes, one theory points to drones equipped with payload sensors designed to be detecting direct radioactive material right now. Okay. Given ongoing and heightened threat of Al-Qaeda on the East Coast, others believe this could be part of a large psyop, according to Zero Hedge, aimed at pushing through new drone legislation in Washington, D.C., so that we wouldn't be able to use individual drones anymore, that it would be massive military or commercial grade drones and massive new legislation that would prevent us from doing that. Of course, other people saying, oh, it could be Iranian or Chinese operators in order to create mass hysteria in the United States.
Even Fox News said, well, this sounds like the Chinese spy balloon where they didn't knock it down until after it had already collected all kinds of data for the Chinese government. They're still saying that, even though that's been widely debunked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, they're continuing with that story about China and Iran. And we would know specifically all of these craft. We would know about an Iranian ship or any of that off the coast of the United States. We would know with pinpoint accuracy. We watch the transports of everything in Iran. We would know that there's a giant mothership off the coast of the United States. It's ridiculous. Even the Washington Post... Go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick, that the idea that if the government comes out and says, well, this is Chinese, this is Iranian, they're basically saying we are completely incompetent. So that they can't do, it can't be that because, that would, there's they can sneak up on us and we can't do anything about it. For real. I mean, it's impossible. We know exactly where they are. Right. So the idea that a massive mothership is just sitting off the coast of New Jersey, it's ridiculous, off of the Jersey Shore. So even Josh Rogan, who is the Washington Post, writes for the Washington Post. So the Washington Post saying this, Josh Rogan posted this: if these are really Defense Department drones doing radiation sniffing for possible dirty bombs, one could understand why they wouldn't want to admit that and panic people. But at this point, the lack of disclosure is damaging public trust. Time to come clean.
Word. The
Washington Post. I spoke to Ashton Forbes just a few minutes ago. Ashton Forbes is a physicist and an investigator, and deeply connected to the study of the disappearance of Malaysian flight MH370. And he says, that he has a theory, at least on this drone piece, and he thinks that it makes sense that these would be out at night in some sort of a mesh to try to stop maybe perhaps an incoming hypersonic missile, if that was perhaps one of the reasons. But take a listen to his assessment of these potential drone sightings.
So we know that we've got full motion video coverage of the entire planet. This was actually admitted to in the UFO hearing just a month ago by both Michael Schellenberger and Tim Gallaudet. So we know what these drones are. Maybe the FBI doesn't know because they don't have access to that information, but the NRO, the CIA, the NSA, the NGA, these organizations know exactly what these drones are. So the question is, why are they lying to us about them? And I also think that drones has become the code word for UFOs now as well, which should make us wonder, what are these things flying around? Is there even somebody inside of some of these UFOs that we're seeing? Is that even a requirement? The theory that I kind of like the best, and also I just want to point out that Congress is apparently getting a classified briefing about these drones that are flying around as well. So if there was nothing there, why would they be getting a classified briefing about it? And some of the sightings have indicated that they are transmedium, that they might be coming out of the water. In other cases, they've been saying that they're not giving off any signals or any frequencies, which I'm not really sure what that means. But these could be some of the observables that we see in UFOs. Now, the flip side of it is there is mass hysteria going on right now. We've reached a point now where this is it's a self-perpetuating thing where people are now just misidentifying planes and other stuff. And they're claiming that they are, these UFOs or drones when they probably aren't. So there's a lot of mud in the water that's making it very difficult to sift through. The only way we could really get forward on an answer is if we were to get high quality, military or intelligence grade, infrared footage of one of these things where we could actually analyze it. And I think the likelihood of that is slim. Now, my personal theory that I like, that Clint Russell and I were talking about just a couple of days ago, was this idea that what if these are some type of defense mechanism, like a mesh network, like a fence, essentially that is set up, ready to intercept some type of hypersonic weapon, either coming from outer space or coming from like a submarine off the coast or somewhere else, where seconds matter. And even the deployment time would make it less likely that you'd be able to intercept an incoming ICBM or something like that. That would actually make sense in terms of why the local governments have no idea what's going on. And it would make sense in terms of why the federal government would not be able to speak about it and potentially do a classified briefing.
But then what's the plan, though? Like, they had no plan to answer what would inevitably be questions if that were the case, that it's some kind of classified defense test. That's what he's saying. Right. Right. And then did they have any plan in place when people started noticing and asking questions?
Yeah, and that's the question, right? And some are suggesting, oh, this is, Project Bluebeam, right, which aims to, claims global elites, of course, are going to fake a large-scale invasion, large-scale alien invasion to instill a new world order. Mm-hmm. I know that, Alex Jones has been talking about that. I don't know exactly the new world order piece of this, but certainly a lockdown and a martial law strategy ahead of President Trump taking office would not be out of the question. Certainly they've tried to assassinate him. So once you have that once you have like assassination on the table, and that's already been attempted multiple times.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit, really, at this point. But of course, the real focus is now around these nuclear weapons and the missing Ukrainian nukes that Americans apparently have their hands on and potentially have gone lost. So where are these nuclear weapons? Where are these nuclear warheads after the fall of the Soviet Union that the United States apparently has their hands on? So is that what they're looking for? Are they looking for a nuclear weapon right now? Again, President Trump is right. They know exactly what's going on. The Pentagon is stonewalling on this issue. And meanwhile, they all think we're stupid, that what we're seeing in the air, in the sky, are airplanes. Here's failed Representative Adam Kinzinger, douchebag Adam Kinzinger, who says, these are not drones. These are not UFOs. Everyone, you're all idiots. These are all just airplanes. He's analyzed every video. Watch.
What I'm hearing from FBI is, we don't see a threat here. And look, honestly, every video I've seen, and I've spent the last couple of days looking at every one of these videos, every video I have seen on Twitter, on the internet, are all airplanes. They're literally all airplanes. Some of them will show an airplane that's kind of stable out there and says that's a drone. And actually, it's an airplane flying towards you at 30,000 feet, and I can see the lighting on it. And if there are drones out there, by the way, and if any of these pictures that they have shown are actual drones, these drones then are complying with FAA lighting requirements, a green on the right, a red on the left with a strobe. And so it's not Iran, it's not aliens if there are drones. My guess is if there are drones, again, because again, all I've seen are airplanes, then it is more than likely some company that's out testing drones or something like that and has no requirement to tell the public that they're doing it because they're actually operating these things legally. There have been no accusations of illegal operations. By the way, as a pilot myself, I can fly over a military base whenever I want. Those restrictions don't exist. So I think there's a lot of mass hysteria, and I've heard stories of people pointing lasers at these quote-unquote drones, and then the drones' lights go off. Actually, let's be clear. I've been lased as a pilot before. You're supposed to turn off all your lights once you get lased so that they can't find you because it can actually damage your eyes.
Right.
So, yeah, I think
Yeah. So how does he then account for, you can just fly over military bases? So drones, now we have reports at a Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio that drones force the airspace blockage there for multiple hours at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So, okay.
Also, is it very responsible to encourage people to be doing that?
Yeah. So everyone get out your lasers, I guess, now.
Or even civilian pilots. Like, hey, you can just go fly right over military bases. That's cool.
Well, I don't know. We're going to continue on the story. I'm stunned that we've had whistleblowers, we've had individuals on our show who've been predicting this for months, and now it's here. And so, conspiracy knowers, not conspiracy theorists.
Yes, we have the shirt.
I feel like in general, people have kind of forgotten that a lot of this started in the UK. Is when this entire thing started. It was around bases in the UK. So it's not just
right near right near Rendlesham Forest, the famous Rendlesham Forest case in the early 1980s. Go back and research it. And U.S. airmen who were there with UK airmen at the Royal Air Force Base there, and what happened at Rendlesham Forest. So that's where, like a lot of this began. But yeah, it's mostly just focused on New Jersey at this point. But well, I don't know. The President-elect Trump takes office on January 20th, and so all of this is happening conveniently right before then. So, and I think DC Drano posted, say the timing of this seems very, very strange. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like some sort of a massive psyop, some sort of a massive false flag. Something is going on, and I don't think we have the answers to it just yet, as some may claim they do, but I don't think we do.
Right. I mean, it doesn't seem like Adam Kinzinger did a lot of study for that piece on CNN. He's just spitballing.
He watched a lot of videos. He watched every video.
He watched every one.
That's all he did all weekend.
Okay.
And then he cried about it.
All right. Well, last week we showed you this fake CNN video of Clarissa Ward rescuing a Syrian prisoner who was freed from a Syrian prison. We're guessing that it's fake based on many different data points. And CNN now has been forced to admit that it was a bit of a sham, and the man that they reportedly rescued was what they call now a regime torturer. Way to go. Way to go. As a reminder, here's the video that they posted as if they were rescuing someone from what they called the Assad regime. People were quick to point out many flaws, such as this man looks well fed and groomed for having been in prison for 3 months in this jail cell under a sleeping bag. I'm just going to play a little bit of it for you. We're not going to watch the whole minute and 47. But here they are like, ooh, someone here? What's going on? So let's just watch a little bit and we'll stop because it's...
I can't tell though. It might just be a blanket, but it's the only cell that's locked. Is he gonna shoot it?
The guard
got to shoot the lock
turn
off.
The camera off while he shoots the lock off the cell door. We go in to get a closer look. It's still not
oh my
clear
God.
if there is something under the blanket.
Is there a man under that blanket? And he didn't hear the gunshot echoing through a cement building where we just shot a lock off?
He's napping.
He's just napping. Like, I'm a light sleeper, but I think a gunshot reverberating through there. It's like a gun range. Oh, maybe he's wearing protective percussion.
Shoot it. Yeah, point a gun at him because let's see.
There's a man under here. It's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. Well fed.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian.
Yeah. And then they go outside and he looks right up at the sun. Yeah. Oh my God, she's so...
He's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months. Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
Okay, also, her bio, let's go ahead and... so then she's like, let's take him outside. Let's get him some water. Does anyone have water? Her bio says she speaks Arabic, but she does not bother to speak to him in any kind of Arabic at all.
No, it's got to be English for an American audience.
Right, but if you, who does she care about then? Like, she's trying to tell this guy, you're okay, and then she tells the translator to tell him that she can't tell the
yeah, it's all performance.
Am I the only one that noticed that? Like, so they shot the lock off of like that sort of back room of like cells, but his cell was wide open. That is not standard practice for why is the guy still in his cell when the door is wide open?
It's literally like the minions who just walk through when they say, let's leave the jail. And then they just walk through.
They just turn sideways and they like
just
squeeze right through. And they're like, oh, I could have gotten out of here the whole time.
Right.
I just like this so much.
Now, we've seen her sort of stage these attacks before, or these, dramatic news pieces, such as this one when she was said she was under fire in Israel after the war in Gaza began. We'll watch just a tiny bit of this as well.
Clarissa is on the ground right now. Clarissa, tell us what's happening.
Stand by.
Hi, John. So forgive me, I have a slightly unelegant position, but we have just had a massive barrage of rockets coming in here, not too far from us. So we have had to take shelter here by the roadside.
Okay, so it was, we'll go ahead and stop that. It was later reported that not so far from us was doing some heavy lifting in that sentence.
Yeah.
So the community notes took that Syrian prisoner video, and they just handled it, and I loved watching it. But then also an independent fact checker named Verify did some real journalism as well, and they found out this rescued Syrian prisoner was in fact a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence with a long rap sheet of alleged crimes. They say his name is Salama Mohammed Salama, known as Abu Hamza, and he is a first lieutenant in the Air Force, notorious for his activities, such as frequently being stationed at checkpoints in the area, in an area that was infamous for civilian abuses. He reportedly managed several of these checkpoints and was involved in theft, extortion, coercing residents into becoming informants. And he has only been there for less than a month, according to locals. So, and, you know, when you look at this, you think of, that's actually kind of racist, the way they pulled this off. They just thought any old Arabic looking guy would do. Like, oh, those Arabs, they're savages. Nobody will know who this guy really is. As if they don't have access to the internet or any kind of research, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's arrogant. Here is what CNN now says to the New York Post when they were asked about this. They said, we have subsequently been investigating his background and we're aware he may have given us a false identity. We're continuing our reporting into this and the wider story. But they still maintain that this was not staged.
Right.
Sure, it wasn't. And they really did find him there. Here's what they told the Post. They say, that CNN denies allegations that the piece was fabricated. No one other than the CNN team was aware of our plans to visit the prison building featured in our report that day. The events transpired as they appear in our film.
Right.
So you can just march into these, prisons now, is what they say, even though Al-Qaeda is in charge in Syria, but they were just like, we happened upon it. We woke up that day and said, where should we go? Should we check out the local prison, see if anyone's still there? So, okay, they're investigating though. So it's still up on her profile. The comments are gold. When other CNN anchors like Caitlin Collins have also retweeted it, those comments are super fun. I encourage you to watch on X.
Well, I love that these CNN anchors, like Caitlin Collins, posted that report. She's like, this is incredible.
That's what she said.
And I responded on Twitter.
Yeah,
and said,
Clayton says Oscar worthy. Actually,
Oscar worthy, incredible, really.
Right.
I just want to know. I want to know who they're gonna get to fake eyewitness to when they're investigating themselves. Like, who are they going to interview for that?
Right.
We went into a CNN office and there was an intern that's been locked in here for 4 months.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe the sunlight outside. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's wild. So, okay, they'll investigate themselves and we'll see. Well, the rest of us are like, that doesn't seem quite so right. So it doesn't help with the plummeting confidence in the legacy media now, does it?
No. In fact, we got a big story coming up here in just a second on the legacy media collapsing and Kamala Harris. You want to hear about this story in just a second. But first, is your business dealing with a time-consuming expense reporting process and still wasting money on out-of-policy spending? You need to try Ramp. Are you looking to cut costs, improve your business's bottom line? Well, with Ramp, spend policies are built right into the credit card, so you can prevent wasteful spending before it happens. You can customize spending limits and restrictions so employees are empowered to purchase what your business needs, and then you can have peace of mind so you know that they're not overspending at random restaurants or different things like that. It's all right there in your dashboard. So Ramp plays bad cop so you don't have to. They detect bad policy violations, chasing missing documentation, requesting repayments, locking of cards for non-compliant employees. Like my father-in-law had to deal with that with a bunch of his employees using the company card to go to lunch at different places, and it was not allowed. Anyway, Ramp will handle that for you. Ramp's accounting software automatically collects receipts, categorizes your expense in real time, so you don't have to. Say goodbye to manual expense reporting. So now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/redacted. That's ramp.com/redacted. That's RAMP.com/redacted. Cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. All right, back to the news. Will Kamala Harris run for governor of California, or will she run for president in 2028? That, my friends, is the question that is vexing Democrats today. Harris is debating her future, according to multiple reports. Lots of buzz and a bit of drama inside of the Kamala Harris's inner circle about whether she should head back to California and run for governor in 2026. Now, the big question on the table, though, is does she focus on making a play for the presidency in 2028 or governor in 2026 and just focus on running for governor of California? A gig, let's be honest, feels a bit more in her reach and likely to win. Very liberal state. And I think they probably, if you're in California, they probably love her.
Oh, my God. I mean,
but think about it.
Only those that have no critical thought skills. I mean, most of them would think, could we possibly do worse than Gavin Newsom? Yes, you could.
Yeah, you could actually.
Absolutely could.
Because after all, the destruction of California can be traced directly to Kamala Harris. That's not hyperbole. She's responsible for the law that decriminalized theft. Yes, she made theft legal, for crying out loud. So her hands are all over the collapse of California. So you know that's why you had such a rise in theft. Was it under like under $900 or over $900 or something like that?
I don't remember the details.
The exact numbers, but yeah, those are now, you don't have to worry about it. You can just break into stores there in California. Philip, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just the balls she must have to go I would, if I had just lost a presidential election like that and just seen like one, she couldn't get the nomination for the previous election because she got like 3% of the Democratic vote, so she's not popular. I would not risk like the absolute embarrassment of the possibility of losing a governorship in California. Like at that point, I would go just live on a farm somewhere and be quiet, like not telling her to be quiet.
But she can command, right? She can command a large speaking fee anywhere she goes at a lot of these Democratic or war funding. Anything that Rachel Maddow does, she can do too, basically. And they make a lot of money. She doesn't have to do that, in my opinion. But it seems like she may be impervious to embarrassment if her campaign was any indication.
Well, reports today are swirling that some of Kamala's team thinks that she's got what it takes to run for president once again. After all, she did raise over $1 billion. $1 billion, like in that 100-day window.
But that fundraising was based on Trump derangement syndrome, where people were just motivated to keep Donald Trump from winning the office. I don't think it was based on her platforms because we didn't know what they were. I don't think it was based on her personality because it was just a nonsensical cackle. So how can you do that in California without a Donald Trump to run against?
She'd have to run against probably J.D. Vance, right? Good luck with that. That would be fascinating to watch.
For president. J.D. Vance is not going to run for the governor of California.
Well, no, I'm sorry, for the presidency. Yeah, but if she's going to, that's what my point is, that her team thinks that she should run for president because after all, she ran and made $1 billion and they think that she should do it again. They say they managed to polish up her reputation along the way. Remember how in the trash her reputation was like in the beginning of the spring of this past year? You had like liberals all over television talking about Kamala Harris's reputation, that she's a huge drag on the ticket. Maybe they should get rid of Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly there was like this revitalization of her personality and reputation.
She was recast as brilliant and charismatic. Yes.
Right. So as delusional as that sounds, that's what her inner circle believes. They see 2028 as her shot at redemption, but not everyone's convinced. Others worry about having this drawn out campaign against some heavy hitting Democrats who've been waiting in the wings. I say that Jared Polis of Colorado, the Democratic governor of Colorado, will run for president. Mark my words that he will run, and she will lose to him. Okay, what he's been able to do in the state of Colorado, in an area where was a heavily red state for a long time, is now a heavily blue state. On election night, it immediately, as soon as they had those polls closed, it immediately went for Kamala Harris as a blue state. So that's Jared Polis. That's Jared Polis and his team, and I think that she'd have to go up against him in 2028. Good luck with that. So I don't know, and it could fizzle out, especially after if she has to go up against J.D. Vance. Good luck with that. So California's governor race seems like a slam dunk, in my opinion. She's a familiar face in the state. She's been elected statewide there 3 times, served as attorney general, then a senator, state of California. Plus, according to CNN, a lot of big name contenders for the job in California, if she were to run, would just step aside. They're like, okay, you got this. We're just not even going to try to run against you in California. But here's the big problem. As I was going through the math on this, right, she can't do both of these things. If she's the governor, if she goes for the governor's spot, she'd have to announce by this summer of 2025, okay? And then just a few months after, that's after President Trump takes office in the spring, in January. If she wins, then she'd be stuck juggling both the demands of being a new governor and at the same time then trying to launch a presidential campaign simultaneously. Would Californians be okay with that? Like, hey, we just got a new governor and she's already looking to leave the job and she's campaigning fully across the United States to be president of the United States. So why did we just elect her as our governor? Like, she's going to have to pick one or the other here. There's no way you can do both of these things. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Probably not. She's not going to be able to do it. But anyway.
But I think that the rest of the country is like, have her, California. If you're going to do that to yourself, then you've done that to yourself. And we can't, so... Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. There's a lot of Californians watching right now. They're like, no, please, no.
My father would just, oh my God, he'd had an aneurysm.
Yeah, he would, oh no.
He's a California Republican, one of the few. Okay, well, ABC News settled its case with President-elect Trump, and they will pay $15 million to the Trump Presidential Library. This was the case where President Trump had sued them because George Stephanopoulos had repeatedly said that when he interviewed Nancy Mace, that President Trump had been found liable for rape, which was incorrect. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation in the E. Jean Carroll case. And recall that the state of New York had to change the law so that E. Jean Carroll could bring that case because the statute of limitations had long since been passed. ABC News released a statement about this saying, quote, "We are pleased that the parties have reached an agreement to dismiss the lawsuit on the terms in the court filing." Now, it's no wonder then that ABC is treading extra carefully while they've been litigating and trying really hard to say true things, even when they don't want to. Now, recall that The View is hosted on ABC. It's an ABC show. That's why they have repeatedly had to be reading legal notes when they try to take underhanded hits at Trump nominees, such as this one, where Sonny Hostin had to say this about Pete Hegseth.
I have a very quick statement.
It's not going to be that quick.
Pete Hegseth has denied any wrongdoing. His lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. No charges were ever brought.
You rushed me for that?
It's really hamstringing their ability to hit at them when they have to then
notes,
tell the truth. Here's another one that they had to, this was one of the first that they had to do about Matt Gaetz.
I have a legal note.
You want to take this one, Joy, or are you
Matt
good?
Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
That's true.
Also, another legal note, Pete Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit.
Oh.
He has denied any wrongdoing.
That's interesting. Pay off the witness.
She's like, be quiet now. Be quiet now.
You're going to ruin our legal note.
Yeah. Okay. So they're pissed that they have to do this and they can't just impugn people's characters without consequences. As part of this settlement, ABC had to publish this on the original Nancy Mace interview, saying ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during this interview on March 10th. So I bet they regret it to the tune of $15 million. But President-elect Trump, I think, is maybe a little bit high on this win because now he's threatening lawsuits against the Des Moines Register over its final election poll showing Trump that was losing several points to Kamala Harris in the run-up in the weekend before the election. He's also said that he may sue CBS for editing the Kamala Harris interview, even though that really didn't have anything to do with that. I think the FEC should take a look at that. Other regulatory bodies. I'm not thrilled with the idea of Donald Trump just punishing people that he doesn't like because we need a free press. We need free speech, right? And so it would be interesting. Did this woman at the Des Moines Register do fake science? Did she manipulate the numbers? Is it her right to do that, right? So I do want to see the press have a higher commitment to truth, but does this fall into the category of protected speech? Are you allowed to just get it wrong, right? Maybe her math models were wrong. You see what I'm saying? This is a slippery slope. Like, we definitely want the media to do better, but they need to be free to do better. Well, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, as Lil Jun Fan in our chat says, defamation is a thing. It is a thing, but it's a very high bar for a person, a public person.
A public figure.
A public figure, right? A private person has a much easier time suing for defamation, but a public figure, you would have to, I think you have to improve intent. With malicious intent. Like you have to knowingly print that you knew that this was false information, and then you printed it on purpose to maliciously hurt that person.
Right.
Right. It's a very high bar to prove.
Yeah. I'm just, how you could serve discovery on the Des Moines Register and say, what were your numbers? Did you do something that you don't normally do because you didn't like the outcome of this? And then you were affecting the outcome. That one's tricky. We would need a constitutional lawyer to look at that in order to see if that was right or wrong. So he can say that and maybe rough them up a little. It's his free speech to scare them, I suppose. But we definitely don't want restrictions on the press. So yeah, this one's tricky. Let me know what you think.
By the way, I just want to say thanks to all the folks watching us on Beck Television. Nice to see all of you guys. We just got our numbers, and they're fantastic. And just, we're thrilled. We launched earlier this year on Beck TV. So to all of you who watch us on your televisions every night, we really appreciate you tuning in and enjoying us there as well. Because we stream on YouTube and we're on Rumble and on X, but nice to see all the Beck TV folks. We just got those numbers in today, and hello to the hundreds of thousands of you. I see you, and we love you. Thank you so much. All right, here's something I love. And I've long said that if I ever ran for president, and I was saying this jokingly, of course, but there'd be one platform I would have run on, and it's to end daylight saving time. I hate it. It's anachronistic. We don't need it. It's lost its purpose since the 1918 when it first rolled out. Well, Donald Trump is now saying that he is ready to end daylight saving time. Yes, he announced plans on Friday to permanently end daylight saving time, says that he and his party will work to eliminate what he calls the, quote, inconvenient and very costly system. He says the Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time. And I love that he says daylight saving. There's no S on savings. It's daylight saving time.
Yes.
Which has a small but strong constituency, but it shouldn't, he said. Daylight saving time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation. And so Republicans have tried this over and over again to get rid of this thing, but the Biden administration kept it in place. In fact, it passed fueling the passage of the 2022 Senate bill. It would have made daylight saving time permanent under Biden, but Republicans managed to stop that. Daylight saving began in 1918 during World War I. We don't need it anymore. There's no purpose for it at all. End it. It's miserable because then it always screws up our kids' schedule. They're either up early,
And actually, there's copious statistics about increased fatalities in traffic accidents around
heart attacks.
Things like that. So sure, let's do that.
Daylight saving time kills, and we should end it. All right, we've got a lot more news to get to on your Monday. We're going to talk about the January 6th investigation, and former FBI whistleblower Stephen Friend is going to be here to break all of that down. What does it mean to have informants in the crowd that day versus undercover agents? And what does it mean for the people that are currently behind bars? For them going forward. Or
fighting their cases even still, January 6th defendants. So we're going to talk to him about that. But first,
let me just pull up my little notes here if I can get to it. Yes, indeed. Trump has his cabinet picks in place. RFK Jr. is on Capitol Hill today. Of course, a lot of questions about what they're going to do with vaccines, polio vaccines, all of that. There's a lot of excitement about those cabinet picks, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk in the new DOGE department. But we don't want to get our hopes up too high because we still have the threat of World War III at the moment. And, of course, the U.S. debt is still massive and growing, as I covered this weekend on the show. The U.S. debt is at an unmanageable level. And Janet Yellen this past week says, I'm sorry. The debt is probably a big issue. We didn't really get to do anything about it. We've just expanded it by $16 trillion. But I'm sorry. So that's why we're big proponents in our family of making sure that you're invested in tangible assets instead of the US dollar, like gold and silver. And our friends at Lear Capital can help you get set up with that. They're going to show you how easy it is to move some of your savings or your retirement accounts. If you've got an old IRA sitting around or a 401k, you can convert that into gold and silver that holds its value and protects your long-term wealth. Don't be complacent. Call our friends at Lear Capital today. 1-800-613-3557 or go to LearRedacted.com to get your free gold and silver wealth protection guides. There's no obligation, just free information. You've seen my interviews with the founder, Kevin Demerit. This company is solid, and it's all about education and helping you make right decisions. Lear has over 27 years experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, $3 billion in trusted transactions. The only company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So call them today, 1-800-613-3557, and ask how you can get up to $15,000 in bonus gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. And I recommend you do this before the end of the year. Be prepared, have some peace of mind in this holiday season into 2025, or visit the website LearRedacted.com.
The FBI says there were informants in the crowd on January 6th. I know you're shocked. This was the new bombshell report from the Inspector General that was released last week, and it shows that informants were in the crowd, and that is no longer a conspiracy theory. But there are more questions than answers. I don't think this report is by any means the end. It's only a validation of what many of us have been saying. So the first person I wanted to speak to was FBI agent and whistleblower Steve Friend, who became a whistleblower when he testified to Congress that the FBI had been mishandling January 6 defendants' cases. So he's here to explain. Thank you so much for coming back.
I appreciate the invite.
Okay, so first of all, informants versus employees, what the FBI calls them in this report. Well, we should go to who's reporting on this in a second, but they call them CHSs, or confidential human sources. Can you explain what that is? And if they're deputized to do anything, why is this concerning? Give it to us.
Well, the confidential human source, the CHS, that's the snitch. That's the informant. That's just the parlance that the FBI happens to use for them. This is a person who's not a W-2 employee of the FBI. In fact, they're admonished every year by their handler within the FBI that they do not, in fact, work for the FBI. They're doing work on behalf of the FBI. They're only paid when they're productive, though, which is sort of a perverse incentive, particularly as it pertains to national security, domestic terrorism, the way the FBI characterizes it, because they will self-deploy and infiltrate, as they'll label it, but they'll basically become friends with people and then inform back on them to the FBI in hopes of ginning up a case. So the number of people there that day, I think it was 26 from the Inspector General's report. To me, it seems actually kind of low, but there's also a lot of omissions with this, just for the fact that it is an OIG report about the FBI, and people seem to be overlooking the fact that there were other law enforcement agencies who were present there and had their own informants.
Okay, so let's get to that sort of conflict of interest, because it's the government investigating itself and acting like this is all on the up and up and just fine. But you mentioned, well, this is they basically answer to the FBI, right?
The Inspector General works for the Department of Justice. They're answerable to the same umbrella agency as the FBI. So basically, it's the government investigating the government and determining that the government did nothing wrong. And then on top of that, the investigators here do not have subject matter experts at their elbows to help them. So the FBI is able to tiptoe through the raindrops on a lot of the questioning, even if it is legitimate questioning, particularly as it pertains to undercover employees, because they play games with the language on that.
Yes, they do. Okay, but they admit here that they say, we determined that 26 of these CHSs who were in D.C. on January 6th in connection with the events of January 6th. 4 of them entered the Capitol during the riot. 13 were in restricted areas. None of them were prosecuted. So what can we surmise by that? That they were allowed to go in, that they were told to go in? Doesn't this open up those questions, those very questions?
Well, there's something called otherwise unlawful activity. So essentially, you can permit the informant to engage in activities that are in violation of the law if it helps to support the case going forward. So I think that there's an element of that. There might also be the element of people after the fact became, in turn, snitch, became confidential human sources because they wanted to evade responsibility for their own actions that day. So the number itself might not represent the number of people who were deployed in expectation of there being any sort of event that day. But I think another element to this is the fact that the FBI did lie on that report when it said that they did not canvass for confidential human sources. There were emails sent out to FBI agents outside of Washington, D.C., in the national security space, requesting that they canvass their own informants, who they have a quota for. Every agent has to have 2, and see if they were available to go to the Stop the Steal rally. So that's a lie from the Inspector General report.
Okay. And they admit, so that's one thing that you were able to surmise that maybe the rest of us wouldn't have known. They admit that these members were Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. So what does that tell us? That they had sort of infiltrated these groups in advance?
Yes, that is going on constantly. It's not just January 6th. This is the FBI's playbook. They find groups that they have a problem with their political ideology, with their First Amendment protected activity. And even though the FBI has a caveat that they don't investigate you as an American for that activity, that there are guardrails, the Constitution, they completely ignore that. And they direct their informants, or at least encourage them, to go and infiltrate groups and see if they can get someone to commit to do something that they're not predisposed to do. Look, it is in excess of 90% of FBI counterterrorism investigations involve entrapment. People who are not predisposed to commit any sort of act of violence, and but for the involvement of the FBI through a confidential human source or an undercover employee, they would never have engaged in it. So it doesn't surprise me at all, particularly with January 6th, because the FBI was desperate to have a pre-existing organization that they could pin this on, which is why they went after the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, so they could say, oh, look, those are militia violent extremists.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, number 4 here gives this summary of the FBI's general roles and responsibility. It's basically saying, well, we weren't really in charge of securing January 6th anyway. We were just sort of playing this support role, or we were supposed to share any threat that we had beforehand. So they're almost letting themselves off. Like, really, we weren't a main part of it. It was supposed to be Capitol Police and other FBI or other government law enforcement agencies. What do you think of that?
Well, unfortunately, they have sort of a get out of jail free card because there was not an NSSE in place, a National Special Security event, which is all the time in Washington, D.C. for an inauguration or a State of the Union or a fireworks show on July 4th. For whatever reason, the powers that be decided just on that day, when they knew there was going to be a large crowd gathering to lawfully exercise their First Amendment rights, they didn't want the full security package. And I think that that's what the FBI is going to rely on here. But they cannot rely on the fact that they have been investigating, using the dragnet to go after so many people who are engaging in misdemeanors at worst. And as a FBI agent who went through the process of being trained, was told, we don't investigate misdemeanor activity.
Okay, so as a civilian, I know that the FBI is allowed to lie to me. But are they allowed to lie to Congress? Because here they admit readily that they had prepared documents for congressional testimony and subpoenas, and that those documents were lies. They just had falsehoods. What is the consequence that the FBI can just lie to Congress like that?
Unfortunately, when the Democrats are in control, there's no accountability. And it seems like the same thing when the Republicans are. We have the Weaponization Committee, which has done absolutely nothing. There's been no accountability. And they're just going to continue to flaunt in the face of these elected officials and lie to them. Or they're going to be very lawyerly in the way that they respond to particular questions. So it's a little bit off topic, but I do think it's important to zero in on the undercover employee. An undercover employee is a UCE. That is an official position in the FBI. So you go through training, you go through a selection process. It's very rigorous. And if an agent needs an undercover employee for their case, they request it officially. So the question was posed by the Inspector General lawyers, did you have any undercover employees there? The intention of that question was not UCE. They were asking, did you have employees who were there wearing plain clothes? The way that a lay person would expect an undercover to look. But the FBI answered back very specifically, we did not have any undercover employees there, meaning we didn't have any of the official UCEs there. But that didn't mean or even respond to the fact that they could have had other employees there, and we know that there were.
Okay. So then one of the things that Representative Thomas Massie has said in response to this, and he said, look, I've been called a conspiracy theorist for saying this for years now. This is shocking. And it shows that President-elect Trump needs to pardon J6ers on day one, and he urges them to do so. This is something that you've said because the FBI has been so cagey, they should forfeit the cases in which they have violated civil rights. So what do you think of Thomas Massie asking for this, and what do you think about the ongoing cases that January 6th defendants are currently fighting still?
I avow his perspective entirely, and I am fully aware that people engaged in violations of the law on January 6th, some of them violent. The problem is when the government gets away from its prime directive. The case here, the prime directive for the government is to always follow the process. That is your victory. You gather the facts and you present them. If the facts support a conviction, the jury has that say. If they don't, the jury has that say. The win or loss doesn't matter. But instead, what the FBI did was put their thumb and entire arm on the scale to get a particular outcome. And they manipulated it, and they made the process the punishment for people. People who didn't do anything illegal. They sent SWAT teams to their houses. So as a result of that, the government forfeits everything here. And even the evildoers get to go walk free. The comparison I like to make is Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby drugged and sexually assaulted multiple women. And then he had a behind closed doors meeting with the prosecutor, during which the prosecutor said, tell me what happened and I won't use it against you. And Bill Cosby did. And then the prosecutor turned around and used it against him. And Bill Cosby walked free because the prosecutor went for the outcome and not the process. And the fact that those victims will not get justice is the fault of the government.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely right. And so what happens next? Do you think that it seems like they published this report as if when Christopher Wray had already resigned in order to say, well, we're done with this. This is what we say. You know, we made some mistakes, shouldn't have done it. This is it. And it seems to me that someone needs to get to the bottom of who prepared lies for Congress. How do we know that the FBI now will answer honestly when they're pushed by one of the branches of government? What happens next? What do we do with this? Because I found myself so mad reading it, and I don't know what to do with it.
Well, you're going to have an incoming FBI director, Kash Patel, who's really been in pursuit of the truth his entire career. Look, he was at the forefront of the Russiagate conspiracy and investigations that went on during the first Trump administration. So I think that you have that guy at the helm, and there's going to be an appetite for people to come forward. You set the incentive structure in a way for people to come forward. Unfortunately, we're in this lame duck session, and I'm worried that there's going to be a lot of shredding of documents going on, but they can't shred the people. And the people who are left behind now have a twice-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The first time they came around a couple of years ago when numerous whistleblowers came forward, they punked out, and they didn't step up. They didn't uphold their oath of office. They get that rare second chance now. They need to hold the line. They need to come forward and say what actually went on here so we can hold the people accountable. Because if you swear an oath and you carry a gun and badge, and with it, the ability to take people's freedom or potentially their lives away, and you go awry, you need to be held accountable. So hopefully we'll have an appetite for that. I know we will from the public. The appetite is going to be from within.
Yeah. Well, you can and should read Stephen Friend's book, True Blue, My Journey from Beat Cop to Suspended FBI Whistleblower, where this was the linchpin that got him to speak out about corruption inside the FBI. So it's an exciting time. We're all going to sort of hold on. Thank you so much for coming back on Redacted and explaining this to us.
I appreciate it. Anytime.
Wow.
All right. So let us know what you think of that. Should there just be a pardon for all January 6th defendants? Because, and he acknowledges there were people who did wrong, who there is merit to their cases, but the government should forfeit that because they've been so underhanded and cagey. And
stonewalling.
Yeah.
You know, hiding this information. And by the way, we still don't have hours upon hours of footage that they had at their disposal that they could have released as well, which could exonerate many of these people.
Right.
But they're keeping that under wraps. So ridiculous. All right, we've got more news to get to here. Is Justin Trudeau about to resign? We're watching this very, very closely. It seems like the government in Canada is collapsing in real time. Chrystia Freeland is sending her resignation letter in today, announcing she is done, and the rest of the government seems to be collapsing, just like Germany's government is collapsing.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
What do you know, you guys? Okay, but before that, we want to remind you that our show is brought to you by American Financing, because if you're feeling the stress about giving your family a memorable holiday, you're not alone. Prices are higher than ever. The inflation rates last week were total crap, worse than expected by analysts. So now is a good time to take control of your finances and pay off debt instead of accumulating debt. If you're a homeowner, American Financing can help you unlock the equity in your home and start saving. And in fact, they're saving their customers $800 a month on average. Just imagine what that could do for your family. And what they will do is teach you to leverage assets instead of buying liabilities. This is a trick that wealthy people are taught that most of us are not, and we have to learn it ourselves as adults. So let them teach you. Go to americanfinancing.net/redacted or give them a call, and they can help you leverage your equity in your home that's yours instead of digging yourself deeper into a debt hole. They can help teach you this. There are reports there. It's just something you need to study. You don't have to do it right away. Just say, okay, when I'm off for the holidays, I'm going to see, does this work for me? And they will help you with a personal finance. They will help walk you through what your finances are right now and see if it works for you. Call them at 866-890-8434 or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted. One more time, that's americanfinancing.net/redacted.
Well, we got some breaking news out of Canada. Yes, the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, has resigned. And the letter that she wrote to Prime Minister Trudeau, it really shows that she's lost total confidence in Justin Trudeau. Of course, all of this comes amid the fight over tariffs with President Trump, incoming President Trump, and what that will mean for Canada. This is a bombshell revelation. Of course, she is the same Freeland who was laughing and joking around about freezing the bank accounts of the trucker convoy in all of the COVID restrictions and lockdowns, like as libs of TikTok reminded us. Good riddance to Chrystia Freeland. David Clayton is a fantastic journalist in Canada, in Ottawa, Canada, and has been covering this extensively. And we wanted to bring David on to talk all about this bombshell. David, good to see you.
Nice to be back as always, Clayton.
Wow, some crazy news. So you saw this coming. I mean, you saw this coming for a while now. Were you surprised at her tone in this letter to Justin Trudeau?
Well, that I was surprised about. I wasn't surprised she left. I was expecting her to deliver the fall economic statement today and then be fired by Justin Trudeau. That was sort of the scenario we were expecting, or at least by Wednesday, Trudeau would fire her. She has really outstepped him here. She's really outfoxed Trudeau, because this letter comes out publicly early Monday morning. She announces, hey, I'm not the finance minister anymore. You're on your own, Justin. What are you going to do about the fall economic statement now? And this letter is so caustic. It's the only way I can describe it. I've never seen a federal cabinet minister resign and write a note like this to the sitting prime minister. She's using language in this letter that is directly from Pierre Poilievre's talking points. This is language that Pierre Poilievre is using to describe Trudeau's economic gimmicks. She actually uses the word gimmick to describe, ostensibly, she doesn't say that, but she says economic gimmicks, and we know what she's talking about. This GST holiday that's going on right now, this free $250 check that's coming in the mail. And she's saying, look, the deficit's gone over 40 billion. It's already been publicly stated by the finance department. We know it's going to be higher than 40 billion. And she's saying, how can I do this? How can I continue to spend more money that we don't have? And I know I'm going to be wearing this on Monday afternoon, and I'm expendable. That's really what she's, just like every other woman in cabinet that you have treated abominably, you're doing it to me. This letter just says that in spades.
Do you think that she resigned freely here, or he either told her to resign before she was thrown under the bus, or there's some sort of prosecution that would be coming down the pipe, and so get out now. What's your sense of this, and what are your sources telling you on this?
I'm really contending that she has outfoxed Trudeau. She says in the letter that Trudeau told her on Friday, "I want you gone as finance minister. I want you to resign." So she was expected to say, "Okay, I'll do the economic statement, then I'll resign." And Trudeau, of course, said, "Well, we've got some other role for you in cabinet." She doesn't say specifically what that was. Probably something pretty minor. But she said, "Look, I'm not even going to take your leftovers. I'm not going to take the other cabinet position. I'm leaving cabinet." And then she says, "I'm going to run in the next federal election." Almost like she's saying, "Let's have it. Let's have another federal election." And she really behaved in a manner that Trudeau did not anticipate. He expected her to be the loyal cabinet minister to the very end and to just quietly leave office sometime this week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. And God knows what Trudeau has in mind here. I don't believe for a second that Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, is anxious to come into the Trudeau cabinet, because it's like jumping on the Titanic when it's going underneath the waves of the North Atlantic. This is the worst possible time to be joining any government, especially the Trudeau government. So if he really thinks Mark Carney is going to leave everything to become the next finance minister and run for a by-election seat when, in fact, we're going to have a federal election within the next 3 months, it's guaranteed. But Poilievre today said, "Bring on your fall economic statement. Let's have a non-confidence vote tonight, Monday night. Let's have a non-confidence vote. I'll bet you even the New Democratic Party will vote against you, and I think we'll bring down this government today."
When I was reading this letter, I just find some of it just hard to believe. And, so I wonder if this is true. On Friday, you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister. Is that true? Is she outfoxing him with this language? Is that even an honest assessment of what happened? But the real heart of this is the battle with the United States over Trump's incoming tariffs, this idea of America first. So where do you think they're at loggerheads over the idea of these 25% tariffs and Trump's plan for America first economic nationalism going forward?
Well, what I found interesting about this letter, Clayton, as well, was that she's talking about a real Canada first or a real Team Canada policy. And almost like she's implying that Trudeau's not getting it. It's a Trudeau team policy, not a Canada team policy or a Team Canada policy. It's a Team Trudeau policy. And she's saying, why don't you work with the premiers? Trudeau's only working with one premier, and that's Doug Ford, who is exacerbating the problem by promising to cut off energy to the good folks in the northern states, and to cut off Jack Daniels and other U.S. liquor. And that's playing right into Justin Trudeau's hands, because I can tell you this: Justin Trudeau wants a trade war. Justin Trudeau wants a fight with Donald Trump, and he's not working with premiers like Danielle Smith in Alberta, who say, no, we're not going to cut off our oil to the United States, or with the Premier of Quebec, who said, all Donald Trump wants is us to fix the border. Can't we do that? And then there won't be any tariffs. Justin Trudeau is ignoring all of those premiers. Unlike what Chrystia Freeland said in her letter today, he should be working with all of the premiers, not just one. But Trudeau is deliberately bringing on a trade war because it's the only thing that might save his job. If he can convince Canadians it's Justin Trudeau against Donald Trump, that evil Donald Trump, the orange man, if he can convince Canadians that it's the Liberal government united with all of the premiers, and we're going to co-opt the official opposition as well in this, then that's the only chance he has of rallying Canadians around the flag, because he's not going to do it with Ukraine, and he's not going to do it with anything else, but he might be able to do it with a trade war. But I'm sorry, it's over for Justin Trudeau. This is a pipe dream. This is delusional.
Yeah, Doug Ford, saying we're going to shut off fuel to the United States. That's our response to these 25% tariffs. What do you think ultimately this means for Trudeau? Both Christiana Freeland's departure and the incoming President Trump. What do you think this portends for him come January?
I think there's a dawning realization, even amongst liberals, that the Trudeau government lacks any legitimacy, any validity, and it needs to be replaced. We need a new government to deal with Donald Trump. And there's not enough time now to just say, well, we'll wait it out for the next 4 weeks and 4 days. Donald Trump will be here on January 20th, 2025. And I think we need to at least indicate that Justin Trudeau has failed and the Trudeau era is over, and we need to start anew. We need a leader who can deal with Donald Trump with a sense of legitimacy. And even former Liberal cabinet ministers are coming out and saying that. We need elections. I was the only one saying we're going to have an election before Christmas. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's a high possibility right now because of the ditch that Justin Trudeau has dug for himself. And this very historic occurrence today of a finance minister resigning, and she was also the deputy prime minister. Let's not forget that. This is a key interlocutor in the Trudeau government who has not just left, but has left angry and has left and told Trudeau, you're not doing the job. And Canadians know it, and you know it, and it's time to move on. She said everything in that letter except resign today, just like I did. But that's really, if you read between the lines in that letter, Clayton, that's what she's telling Justin Trudeau. It's time to go. It's time to resign. Let's have new elections. Let's have a government that can deal with Donald Trump because yours no longer can. He lost another cabinet minister today, too. His housing minister resigned. I mean, this is unprecedented in Canadian history for a prime minister to have this sort of thing happen all in one day. And this is like the average week right now because Parliament is completely ossified. There's nothing going on. There's no business going on. And it's just Trudeau posturing before the world as usual and telling Americans they shouldn't have elected Donald Trump. That really went a long way too.
Yeah, I mean, this whole letter is just so fishy to me. I mean, I know it says that she says, that Justin Trudeau asked her to resign on Friday. Something doesn't smell right here. And that's why I'm asking you that. I don't know. Something about the way that this is asked about the resignation piece of this just doesn't smell right. But I don't know. This is really shocking, and I think we're kind of stunned here. But we're going to hold you to it. Let's see if there is an election before Christmas. You've been right about all of these other. You've been right about her before. You've been right about all of this all along. So let's see. There'll be a crazy Christmas up there in Canada.
Well, if you look at the reaction from the Liberals, and I don't know if you're inferring that Freeland's playing Trudeau's game here with this letter.
Yeah.
That's always possible, but it's not. If that's the case, it's not working because the sense amongst Liberal MPs today is one of absolute hopelessness. Nobody is looking at this as this is a really smart move on Christie's hand here. This really helps Justin Trudeau out. Nobody's saying that. I think this is, as I said when we were talking earlier, Chrystia Freeland looks like a woman who has serious health issues right now. I mean, she often, it takes her up to 12 seconds to answer a question. So I think it's anybody's guess what really went on with this letter. But I don't think it's helping Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, unbelievable story out of Canada today. The fiscal cliff quickly approaching. David Creighton, great to see you as always. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much, Clayton.
Thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just think something's so fishy about this letter, but maybe she's just getting this all off her chest, that he did in fact ask her to resign on Friday and had the weekend to think about it. How's she going to pull this off? And she writes this vitriolic letter. Anyway, let us know in the comments what you guys think about that. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. I should remind you, we do have a Redacted store. So we've got a bunch of new designs in our Redacted store. My 12-year-old daughter, was looking through the store yesterday. She's like, ooh, I like that one. I like that one. If you go over to redactedstore.com, we've got a bunch of new designs in there, like our End the Fed t-shirt. A friend of mine just he picked up a Redacted Rebels mug, which I absolutely love, the white background with the fist raised in the air. If you want to join the rebellion and support independent journalism, pick up some great deals right now for the holidays. Get these things shipped out before Christmas and put something under the tree from the redactedstore.com. Check out our hoodies and mugs and all of those things in there. Someone the other day was asking, do you guys have stickers? And yeah, we have stickers in there as well. So you can check out our big Redacted stickers, their bumper stickers and other things like that. So thank you guys for supporting what we do here on the show. We really appreciate it. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We are live every day. So thank you so much for subscribing to the show. It's free to subscribe, whether you're following us on Rumble, the free speech platform, or on YouTube, the often heavily censored platform. But maybe there's a sea change coming on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe there's like less censorship happening. It seems like maybe that's the case, but who knows? Fingers crossed. So you can subscribe and follow us there as well, and on X. Thanks to all of you guys for watching us, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.